Are income tax returns considered income for determining child support obligations? Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow, a family law attorney based out of the Philadelphia area and the owner of Kinchlow Law. So we've been talking a lot about child support obligations, including what types of expenses are included or excluded, along with how just to figure out what is income. And today we're going to talk a little bit about income tax returns. So generally, income tax returns are considered part of your income. However, where it's already been factored, where your tax obligation has already been factored into your net income, the courts won't include it. So let me break that down a little bit. Now, most courts, when they're asking you about your income, they will ask you also to provide your tax returns. And one of the things they're looking for is the way that you are claiming your dependents and the way that you are filing. So are you married? Even if you're not married to the other party, are you single? Are you filing head of household? What type of filing status are you using? And the reason they ask that question or look for that information is because when they're calculating your income, it helps them to determine how much of your taxes should be excluded to determine your net income. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. When determining child support obligations, the court starts with the gross income of the parties and gets it down to a net monthly income. And only a few things are excluded. It is not what you bring home in your paycheck. Rather, there are certain things that are taken off the top to give them a net monthly income. And then from there may be additional adjustments or deductions that are made to determine what the child support obligation is. And the court takes the net monthly income of each party and then uses the guidelines to determine the appropriate amount of support. Then the income, the percentages of the income for that total pot of money is determined by how much each party brings to the table. So if one person earns 60% of the total pot, they're responsible for 60% of the child support obligation. And depending on which party has the child, that will determine which party pays what and to whom. Okay? Again, we're going to do a lengthier video about child support calculations on another day. Again, today we're focusing on income tax returns. And I think that this is timely because as I'm recording this, it's kind of earlier in the year. So when the court is considering the way that you are filing and the amount of deductions you're taking, it's not really necessary for them to look at what your actual income tax return is. But that actually could be something that is of importance. So if there are a lot of deductions that are taken, but especially in situations where a person is overpaying their taxes, it's very important to kind of bring that to the court's attention. So for example, some people choose to have additional federal income taxes taken out of their check every month. So an additional withholding that they fill out on their forms in the beginning of the year, just so they can get a larger refund at the end of the year. Well, what this does is that it can make you look like you're actually having a lower gross amount and therefore a lower net amount. So less money available for determining a child support obligation. And the court has held where a person is overpaying their federal income taxes in order to receive a larger income tax return, the court has said no, that money should be counted as actual income that's available to the party for the support of their child. All right. Now, when you do have certain types of deduction that a person may be able to take, the court can consider that as well as income. Now, all deductions are not considered the same, so it's important for you to speak with an attorney licensed in your area about the facts specific to your case, because just because someone else, one of the parties is receiving or allowed to claim the children, does not mean that the entire refund is counted as income to the parties. Only part of that may be included, and only certain types of credits or deductions are going to be included as income. So it's important for you to know that. But also, it's a good reason for the actual tax returns to be looked at. The tax returns give a lot of information about the actual incomes of the parties. Now, again, don't assume, because I never do, that the income tax return tells the full story, especially in situations where people are self-employed. People do their best in a lot of times to minimize their tax liabilities, and that may result in them taking deductions that are actually still things that could be used for the support of a child. So for example, again, in another video we'll talk about self-employment income, but I'll use an example today of where maybe someone is having their car paid for through their company and then taking a deduction for that or writing it off in some ways. Now, they may have this really big fancy car, but still arguing that they are reporting a loss for their business. So in those situations, we tend to look at lifestyle. But I don't want to go too far into that lane because, again, we're talking about income tax returns. So it's very important for you to understand that income tax returns generally are supposed to be included in your income, but that's only if they're not considered already as part of your tax obligations. And now most systems, when they're entering your data, they are looking and asking questions about that. So typically it is considered. All right, I hope this shed a little bit of light on how income tax returns are considered for purposes of child support obligations. And as always, you want to speak to an attorney licensed in your area about the facts specific to your case. There's a lot of case law surrounding this area that talks about what happens if the reasonable needs of the child are met, whether or not the income tax return was considered. Sometimes they've held that even when it wasn't considered, there really is no need for there to be reversible error because the reasonable needs of the child was actually met with the obligation that was allowed for. So again, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of things for you to know that, a layperson may not know, and then even some attorneys who practice this area, if they're not practicing it a lot or staying up on the law, may be aware of. But it could definitely affect your child support obligation. And if there's a person who's getting a substantial income tax return, it could be, and maybe it should be, considered as income for purposes of determining the child support obligation. All right, so make sure you hit subscribe so you can get another video like this. We're always doing videos every day of 2021 on child support, divorce, or custody. And if you hit subscribe, you won't miss a video. But turn your notification too, because then you'll get a little bell whenever we do drop a new video. And if there are things that you would like me to cover in one of those 3 areas, or maybe if you want to know something about how another practice of law like immigration or real estate or criminal law may affect one of those areas, I can bring someone on and talk to them about that as well. That's something that we like to be able to do too, to talk about how other areas of practice intersect with family law, because they do. Okay? All right. Until next time, take care.